Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? It's your boy, The Doc, and it's time for the Week 10 Injury Update Show. Can't believe we're already in the double digits in this very quick NFL season, but you guys know the deal. If you don't, this is where I, an actual doctor, will go through the entire NFL slate, tell you about all the injuries that you need to know about for your fantasy team, so you can just kick back and relax knowing that we have got you covered here at Headliner Nation. But we got a lot of injuries to talk about, so let's get into it. All right, guys, before we get into the slate, we're going to take a few minutes here to talk about two guys who had their seasons ended in Week 9 due to injury. First up, quarterback Daniel Jones for the New York Giants came back from the neck injury and then tore his ACL. He is done for the year. And then probably one of the more heartbreaking injuries of the year, running back Cam Akers has another Achilles tear. So this time it's on the opposite foot, but Cam Akers just can't seem to get healthy and stay healthy. Wishing him a quick recovery. He had a quick recovery last time, but he is done for the year as well with an Achilles tear. So two guys done for the year. Always hard to talk about season-ending injuries, but the show has to go on, and we do have 4 teams on bye that we are not going to talk about this week. Chiefs, Rams, Dolphins, and Eagles. Lots of good players on bye this week, which means this injury update is going to be pretty important for a lot of you. Let's talk briefly about Thursday night football. Panthers at the Bears. Panthers had a few guys miss this game. Linebacker Brian Burns was out with a concussion. Cornerback CJ Henderson also out with a concussion. And then 2 wide receivers down. We got DJ Chark with an elbow injury, and Laviska Shenault still dealing with that high ankle sprain. As for the Bears, the question is, when are they going to see quarterback Justin Fields again? Hoping for next week, but he had a thumb dislocation and he was not able to suit up this week. Moving on to the early Sunday games, Colts at the Patriots. This game is in Germany. Colts wide receiver Josh Downs dealing with a knee sprain, has not practiced yet this week, was hurt during practice last week, and then was able to play, but re-aggravated his knee injury early on in that game. Didn't return. Concerning, given there wasn't really a specific incident in that game that caused him to miss, just could not play through the pain of this injury, so I highly doubt that we see him this week. Quarterback Julius Brents has a quad strain, still not practicing. Doesn't look like we will see him this week. But linebacker Zaire Franklin with the knee injury was able to practice on Thursday. Looks like they should be able to have him back as long as he's practicing again on Friday. As for the Patriots, they got 2 wide receivers, hopefully making the trip over to Germany. Wide receiver Demario Douglas has an ankle injury, was seen without any ankle support and no apparent limp at practice. So even though he's limited, does look like he's going to be able to play through this. And then wide receiver Devontae Parker dealing with a concussion, limited practices thus far. Missed last week, does look like he's going to be able to come back this week. Moving on to the Browns at the Ravens. Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson, coming off that rotator cuff tear, played pretty well in his first game back last week. He was playing against the Cardinals, so maybe we should take that with a grain of salt. Much harder matchup this week with the Ravens, but he's practicing in full. Did look to have some zip on the ball finally. Throwing the ball last week. Got a little lucky with a tip touchdown, but overall a pretty solid week for Deshaun Watson. Looks like he is going to be streamable again this week, but again, tougher matchup, so we'll see what happens. Tight end David Njoku dealing with a knee injury. Limited practice on Thursday. Still dealing with this knee issue that's kept him limited in practices for a good chunk of the season now, but I do expect him to play. And then offensive tackle DeJuan Jones dealing with knee and shoulder issues, not practicing. Looks like he's going to miss this game. Reminder that Jones is technically the backup for injured starter Jack Conklin at right tackle. So if he can't go, we're looking at a major weak point on the right side of the line for the Browns. And then the Ravens, running back Keaton Mitchell, very popular waiver wire pickup this week, is dealing with a hamstring strain that he picked up in practice. So he was limited on Thursday. We're hoping he's able to get another limited session in. Hopefully it's just a tightness issue, not an actual strain, but we don't know until we know. And as of right now, he's going to be a game time decision on Sunday, kind of a risky start against the Browns defense. Now, moving on to the Texans at the Bengals. Texans, 23 guys on their injury report this week. 12 guys not practicing on Wednesday, maybe the most I've ever seen covering these injury reports and giving you guys these updates. The biggest names all on offense: Dameon Pierce, Nico Collins, Robert Woods, Kaimi Fairbairn. You guys know who I'm talking about, the kicker. Okay. None of those guys have practiced yet this week. It looks like of the four, Nico Collins has the best chance, but I don't think that we're going to see Dameon Pierce, Robert Woods, or the kicker this week. Defensive end Will Anderson Jr., dealing with a knee injury, was limited on Thursday, didn't practice at all Wednesday. Consistent contributor for the team. They gave up a ton to trade up to get Will Anderson, but it does look like he is going to be able to play through this knee issue. And they are getting some help in the secondary as well. Cornerback Derek Stingley Jr. coming off IR with the hamstring strain, full practice on Thursday. It looks like he's going to be able to play in this game. As for the Bengals, they got some wide receiver issues that are pretty serious. Two big-time names for fantasy. First up, we got Jamar Chase dealing with the back injury. Didn't practice Wednesday, limited Thursday. Landed basically flat on his back after trying to make a catch. Almost came down with that catch, but didn't actually haul it in. Landed flat on his back. Did play through that injury, but I think with a good warm-up, 2 more days of rest, we should be able to see Jamar Chase play this week. And wide receiver T. Higgins dealing with a hamstring strain, limited on Wednesday, didn't practice on Thursday. Midweek hamstring strain, not what you want to see for a guy like T. Higgins. Now he's considered week to week with this hamstring injury, so don't expect him to play this week. And then defensive end Sam Hubbard has an ankle injury, didn't practice at all yet this week. Looks like they're going to be down arguably their best defensive lineman as well. Moving on to the 49ers at the Jaguars. 49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel coming back from the hairline fracture in his shoulder. Full practices all week so far. Looks like, barring a setback, Deebo should be able to play in this game. And then for the Jags, wide receiver Zay Jones is back practicing in a limited capacity. Has not played since week 5, so it would be good for their offense to get him back. We'll see what happens with the passing game. Calvin Ridley, kind of a disappointment so far this year. He's had some big games, but he's also been a no-show. We'll see if Zay Jones affects that as well. Moving on to the Saints. At the Vikings, Saints running back Kendre Miller has an ankle sprain, hasn't practiced yet this week, really having a tough time staying healthy in his rookie year. He looks like could be a big part of their future, but just can't stay on the field right now. More opportunities for Alvin Kamara. And then as for the Vikings, probably the biggest news of the week, what is going on with Justin Jefferson? He is eligible to come off the IR. They did designate him to return to practice this week. He's practicing in a limited capacity. You got to have him ready just in case they do decide to activate him. I'd love to see what he looks like with Josh Dobbs. I'm glad they got the quarterback update. I was worried when Cousins went down that we might not see JJ again this season. Looks like he will come back at some point, but I'm guessing it's more likely next week than this week. Wide receiver KJ Osborne, on the other hand, has a concussion, kind of a scary hit where he got hit in the front and back of his helmet, took a helmet basically straight to the face mask, was knocked out in that hit, but was able to come back and play. Limited practice on Thursday, but I highly doubt that we see him this week. And then tight end TJ Hawkinson has a rib contusion. He was actually seen holding his ribs as he left the field last week. So limited practices. He's banged up. Looks like he's going to try to play through, but don't be surprised if we see a little bit more from the backups at the tight end position this week, especially if the Vikings get a lead early. Moving on to the Packers at the Steelers. Packers dealing with some injuries with their star defensive back. Jair Alexander has a shoulder issue, isn't practicing. And then linebacker Quay Walker has a groin injury, not practicing as well. 2 key defenders, neither one of them looking likely to play in this game. Running back Aaron Jones still dealing with that hamstring strain, limited practices. Finally showed a little bit of life last week, gave you a decent week. Looks like he's starting to turn a corner maybe with this hamstring injury. He's a solid RB2 option for me this week. And then the Steelers, free safety Minkah Fitzpatrick has a hamstring strain, did not practice at all this week. 10 days rest, not enough for Minkah. Looks like he is not going to play in this game against the Packers. Last game of the early slate, we got Titans at the Buccaneers. Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill coming back from that high ankle sprain. Limited practice so far this week. Didn't practice on Thursday technically, but the team's already come out and said he lost his job while he was gone. Will Levis is going to be the starter if Tannehill plays this week, and I do expect him to. He's going to be playing as the backup for starter Will Levis. Wide receiver Treylon Burks has a concussion, has not practiced yet this week, landed hard on the back of his head, trying to make a catch at the end of the game last Thursday. Scary injury, really. Landed hard on the back of his head and then could not really get himself back up, but luckily was seen interacting with teammates after the game. Looks like it's just a normal concussion for him, but again, not likely to see Treylon Burks this week. And then the Bucs, they've got some issues at the cornerback position. Carlton Davis, Josh Hayes, both dealing with injuries, not practicing. Davis has a toe injury and Hayes has a concussion. Looks like both of those guys are expected to miss this game. And then Jamel Dean dealing with a concussion of his own, limited on Thursday. He's going to be a game time decision, but I would not be surprised if he misses this game as well. All right, let's head into the midday slate. First up, we got Falcons at the Cardinals. Falcons wide receiver Drake London coming back from the groin strain, back practicing in full after missing last week. We'll see if Taylor Heineke can get him more involved than Desmond Ridder did. And for Arizona, they got a quarterback coming back. Finally, Kyler Murray looks to make his return to the field. If you picked him up, it sounds like he will not have any restrictions in this game from a playtime perspective. So if you have Kyler Murray and you need a starter at quarterback, I would be willing to throw him in. Running back Amari DeMercado still dealing with that turf toe injury, though. He is unlikely to play, but James Conner coming back from the knee injury and off of IR was designated to return, could realistically return this week. Reports from a few weeks ago said that he was good to go and looking good in the work that he was doing while he was on IR. So the limited practices, I think, are mostly just to limit him as he comes back into practice, kind of ramp him up. I would expect him to play and be a very serviceable RB3 against the Falcons team that has been decent on defense, but can still give up points to the running back position. Now we head over to the Lions at the Chargers. Running back David Montgomery dealing with that rib cartilage injury. Back-to-back full practices. Looks like he is going to be able to return this week and is expected to split time immediately with Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm curious to see, now that the Lions know what they have with Gibbs, who gets the lion's share, pun intended, of this backfield. But I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if it's a 50-50 split, even favoring David Montgomery. We know he was the guy before the injury. As for the Chargers, linebacker Joey Bosa, dealing with an illness, showed up, didn't practice on Thursday. Just something to pay attention to. I do think that he has enough time to get better and play in this game. I would say that it's just worth knowing that he was sick and that there is a chance, I guess, that he could miss this game. Heading over to the Giants at the Cowboys. Giants cornerback Adoree Jackson dealing with a concussion/neck injury. Hasn't practiced yet. Looks like he's most likely not going to be able to play in this week's game, which is going to match up rookie Deonte Banks with CeeDee Lamb. We'll see how he does against a pretty tough matchup for the rookie. And then the Cowboys, they're pretty healthy. So we're going to head over to the Commandos at the Seahawks. Commanders wide receiver Curtis Samuel dealing with a toe injury. Limited practices thus far this week. Looks like he's on track to play, but I'm not going to trust him in my fantasy lineups, knowing he's coming off this turf toe injury/toe injury. We don't know for sure if it's turf toe, but typically when it's a toe injury, it's a turf toe injury, and it's not fully healed yet. So I'm not throwing him into my lineups. As for the Seahawks, linebacker Jordan Brooks dealing with the hamstring strain, hasn't practiced yet. He's their second highest tackler in terms of total tackles, so does not look like he's going to be able to play, which could be good news for the Commanders' running backs. Moving into Sunday Night Football, we got Jets at the Raiders. Kind of surprised that we couldn't get a better matchup, kind of flexed into this. I would have taken Giants and Cowboys or even Chargers and Lions instead of this game, but Jets at the Raiders. Jets are pretty healthy. No injuries to talk about there. Raiders do have defensive end Max Crosby dealing with a knee injury. Limited practices thus far. He's banged up, but I'm going to doubt that he misses this game, coming off his best game of the year last week. And he is pretty firmly in the Defensive Player of the Year hunt. Probably my favorite dark horse candidate. He's currently tied for the second most sacks. And the dude is just a menace each and every week. So Max Crosby, if you're the betting type, throw a few bucks on him. He's still a long shot to win Defensive Player of the Year, but if he puts together a strong second half of the season, maybe the Raiders start putting together some more wins, look out for Max Crosby to potentially be in the race for Defensive Player of the Year. Last game of the week, Monday Night Football, Broncos at the Bills. Broncos are pretty healthy, no injuries to talk about, so we're going straight to the Bills. And their safeties, Micah Hyde has a neck injury / stinger. Didn't practice, but again, Thursday practice reports for the Monday night game are a walkthrough practice typically, but they're projecting that he would not have been able to practice. Typically, teams are going to play it safe when they're having neck injuries. Stinger just means that basically there is a nerve issue that's going down the arm from an injury in the neck. Teams aren't going to play around with that type of stuff. Don't expect Micah Hyde in this game. And then free safety Jordan Poyer, also dealing with a shin injury, didn't practice. He's been banged up, but he played every defensive snap last week. I think they're just resting him. He should be good to go to play. All right, guys, that's all I got for the injury update show. I want to thank our sponsors over at Manscaped. Use the code HEADLINERS, get 20% off plus free shipping. Christmas just around the corner, guys. Make sure you're getting yourself something nice this year for Christmas over with our friends at Manscaped. Use the code HEADLINERS for that. Also use the code HEADLINERS when you sign up for Pristine Auction. Pristine Auction giving us all sorts of sweet swag to give away. I know Jake is giving away all sorts of stuff this year already. Make sure that you're signing up for Pristine Auction with the code HEADLINERS to be eligible to win some of that free swag from Pristine Auction. Of course, our friends at Underdog Fantasy, use the code HEADLINERS and get a free $100 first deposit match when you use the code HEADLINERS when you sign up at Underdog Fantasy. My favorite way to play daily fantasy this year. If there's anybody I missed in the injury show, let me know in the comments down below. I love answering questions down there as well, so throw your questions in. I try to get to as many of those as I can. Appreciate you guys watching the injury update show. And the doc, well, I'm out.